Coming up on Arirang News. With the ongoing doctor strike in South Korea, the government for the first time raises its public health alert to the highest crisis level, severe. In response to the medical disruption, telemedicine services and working hours at public hospitals will be extended. For the first time since taking office last month, South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol met with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts, reaffirming trilateral cooperation against the North's escalating military threats. The first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, a U.S. spacecraft has touched down on the moon. Odysseus, the very first private moon lander, is upright and starting to send images from the lunar surface.
Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with South Korea, for the first time raising its public health alert to the highest crisis level, severe. It's in response to nearly two-thirds of the country's trainee doctors having submitted resignations from their posts to protest against the government's medical reform. This means that telemedicine services and working hours at public hospitals will be extended to their maximum possible. Our Kim Do-yeon leads our coverage tonight.
As the resignations of South Korea's trainee doctors continue to worsen the stability of the country's medical system, the South Korean government has come up with a new measure for the public to be able to reach a doctor: telemedicine.
The government will, starting today, fully expand telemedicine to make it easier for people to receive general treatment.
This came on Friday at the first Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters meeting, chaired by Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, to discuss the doctors' collective action against raising the medical school enrollment quota. Before now, telemedicine had been partially available since 2020 during COVID-19 under strict regulations. Only higher-tier hospitals were entitled to provide the service for non-first-time patients, plus for people in remote areas and for appointments at night and on holidays. With the restriction gone until the collective action is finished, non-urgent patients who had their appointments postponed are able to set up a virtual appointment. The government has announced that it will maximize the use of public hospitals as well.
We will maximize the operational level of public healthcare institutions. We will extend the weekday operating hours of all public healthcare institutions to the maximum possible and also expand medical services on weekends and holidays.
Emergency rooms will remain open for 24 hours despite the shortage of specialist personnel. 4 new control centers will open in March to ensure patients with emergencies can be treated on time. Furthermore, employment regulations will be loosened for the time being to help hospitals hire more medical staff. Military doctors will be on duty in hospitals where needed. This comes after the government raised its health and medical treatment disaster crisis warning level to severe as of 8 a.m. Friday, which is one step up from the previous level of alert. With the change, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters is now dealing with the government's response to the protest. Friday marks the 4th day of the mass walkout. So far, over 9,000 intern and resident doctors have handed in their resignations. That's around 71% of all trainee doctors. Of those 9,000, around 8,000 have left their posts in hospitals. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, top diplomats of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan sat down in Brazil on the sidelines of the G20 meeting to reaffirm their commitment to stability on the Korean Peninsula and beyond. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The foreign ministers of South Korea, the United States, and Japan agreed to bolster joint cooperation in the wake of North Korea's escalating military threats. This came as South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol met with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts Antony Blinken and Yoko Kamikawa in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on Thursday on the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meeting. This was Joe's first trilateral foreign ministers meeting since taking office last month. Thursday's session also focused on formalizing trilateral cooperation and executing the agreements made during the leaders of the three countries' Camp David summit last year. In his opening remarks, Joe, underscoring 2024 as the 30th anniversary of the inaugural tripartite summit between the three countries, said Thursday's meeting is a symbolic milestone of the collaborative journey of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Meanwhile, Joe also participated in the two-day G20 foreign ministers meeting in Rio de Janeiro on February 21st and 22nd. Foreign ministers from the 21 member countries and invited nations, as well as representatives of international organizations, explored the G20's potential to address geopolitical conflicts, including the ongoing war in Ukraine. They discussed ways to reinvigorate and enhance multilateralism as a response to a range of global challenges, highlighting the importance of collaboration at the G20 level. Now, Minister Joe is heading to the U.S. The first thing on his itinerary is to sit down with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York to discuss South Korea-UN cooperation on Friday. On the same day, Joe will attend a UN Security Council meeting on the occasion of the second anniversary of the Ukraine war. It is the first official UNSC session attended by a South Korean foreign minister since Seoul became a non-permanent member of the UNSC for the 2024-25 term. There, Joe is expected to highlight South Korea's role and contributions to advancing global peace and security. Following the UNSC meeting, Joe will sit down with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Wednesday in Washington. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Here in the country, a joint air drill between South Korea and the United States took place on Friday, involving state-of-the-art fighter jets to show the Allies' strengthened deterrence against North Korean threats. The Republic of Korea Air Force said that F-35A aircraft from both countries participated in the exercise and showed off perfect teamwork and operational performance. This is the first time in 4 months that these jets have trained together over the Korean peninsula since October last year. The mother of late Russian opposition politician and Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny accuses Russian authorities of planning to carry out her son's funeral in secret. Lee Seung-jae has details.
The mother of Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny said Thursday that she had been given access to her son's body, but added that Russian officials would not release her son unless she agreed to a secret funeral. In a video message released Thursday, Lyudmila Navalnaya said she spent 24 hours in a morgue located in the Siberian town near the prison where Navalny died. She said while she was finally allowed to see her son's body, investigators were blackmailing her by saying if she didn't agree to a secret funeral, they would do something with the body. She added that the official went on to further say that time is not on your side, corpses decompose. However, Navalny's mother insists she won't succumb to the demands, saying she wants those who cared about her son to have an opportunity to say goodbye. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday met with Navalny's widow and daughter in California. After the meeting, Biden expressed his admiration for Navalny and said that the U.S. will be announcing sanctions against Putin for his role in Navalny's death on Friday. In a readout of the meeting, the White House also said the sanction will be major and comes in response to Navalny's death, as well as Russia's repression and aggression and his brutal and illegal war in Ukraine. The meeting took place in California as Navalny's widow flew there to be with her daughter, who is currently a student at Stanford University. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
As this Saturday marks 2 years of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, experts are reiterating the risks of North Korea's role in advancing Moscow's aggressive ambitions. Some say the war in Ukraine and North Korea's cooperation with Russia gives Kim Jong-un a testing ground for his regime's weapons. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
2 years into the Ukraine war, Russia has been turning to North Korea to seek more gasoline for its fire. The two sides are believed to have been strengthening their military cooperation after Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin met in Russia last September. Pyongyang has allegedly sent around 2.5 million rounds of artillery to Moscow for use against Ukraine. Although early assessment has shown that the decades-old North Korean shells appear to be of poor quality, experts say that simply quantity itself matters on the battlefield.
So quantity is very helpful for Russian operations because they've been going through thousands of shells every day. Having thousands of rounds per day to provide to Russia certainly increases the damage to Ukrainian infrastructure as well as increasing Ukrainian casualties.
What's more concerning, though, is Russia's deployment of North Korea's latest KN-23 and KN-24 ballistic missiles. Ukraine's top prosecutor general Andriy Kostin this week confirmed that at least 24 ballistic missiles recently launched by Russia were from North Korea. Although the accuracy is still questionable, the prosecutor said the missiles killed at least 14 civilians and wounded 70. This could be an opportunity for the North to assess how its new missiles fare in combat situations.
I mean, Russia asked, can you give us these things? And North Korea said, yeah, we can do that. But they said, yeah, we can do that because not only were they going to make money, but they were going to have a testing ground to see how well they worked.
So what effect will this have on the security situation on the Korean peninsula? Experts say North Korea's decision to send weapons to Russia shows that the regime is not preparing for a full-scale war against South Korea, as a major military operation would require massive stockpiles of missiles and shells.
You haven't heard much lately about North Korea testing KN-23s or KN-24s. And they were last year, they were the year before. Does that mean they're really down low on those stocks to the point where they need to hold on to what they've got for wartime use? Interesting question, because they've shifted to cruise missile testing, and making you wonder, is that because they didn't have enough ballistic missiles to continue what they've been doing?
Though there may be no need to prepare for war just yet, it remains to be seen whether Moscow will provide the North with the crown jewels of its military technology in return. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
For the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, a U.S. spacecraft has touched down on the moon. Odysseus, the very first private moon lander, is upright and starting to send images from the lunar surface. Our Yoon-hee has the latest.
After 52 years, the United States is back on the moon. Lunar lander Odysseus became the world's first privately built spacecraft to touch down on the moon's surface. According to the Houston-based Intuitive Machines, which made the lander, Odysseus successfully achieved this feat in renewed U.S. lunar exploration at 6:23 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday.
Today, for the first time in more than a half century, the U.S. has returned to the moon. Today, for the first time in the history of humanity, a commercial company, an American company, launched and led the voyage up there.
The NASA-sponsored spacecraft is now the first American lunar lander to touch down on the moon's surface since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. Odysseus, or the Nova C lander, was launched on a SpaceX Falcon rocket on February 15th. On Thursday, one day after the spacecraft entered lunar orbit, confirmation of the landing took several minutes before a faint signal was detected. During the final descent, flight controllers had to switch to an untested landing system due to a problem with the craft's navigation equipment. 2 hours after touchdown, Intuitive Machines announced Odysseus is upright and starting to send data, and that it was working to downlink the first images from the lunar surface. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson congratulating all of those involved, namely Intuitive Machines, SpaceX, and NASA, called the landing a new adventure in science, innovation, and American leadership in space. The lunar lander is carrying scientific instruments from NASA and private contractors that will conduct experiments on the surface. It landed on target near the unexplored lunar South Pole, which potentially has water in the form of ice, something that could be used to provide rocket fuel for missions to other parts of the solar system. Odysseus uses solar power and is scheduled to operate for a week, until the onset of the lunar night, when the lack of sunlight will cause the lander to enter sleep mode.
What a triumph! Odysseus has taken the moon. This feat is a giant leap forward for all of humanity.
이은희, Arirang News.
To sports now. In the table tennis World Championships, South Korea has advanced to the semifinals of the men's team tournament. In the quarterfinals on Friday at the International Table Tennis Federation World Team Table Tennis Championships being held in Busan, South Korea swept past Denmark 3-1. Teams that reach the semifinals get to secure at least a bronze medal, even if they lose, as there is no third place match. With this, it would be the fourth straight time for the South Korean men's team to win a medal at the biennial team event. In the semifinals scheduled for Saturday, South Korea will face the world's strongest team, China, who's aiming for its 11th consecutive world title. This time of the year is usually graduation season in Korea. This means the local flower industry often sees a boost in sales. But it's a different story this year, and more people are starting to look for ways to buy flowers at a cheaper price. Our Park Gun-woo has more on this trend.
Only about 60%. This is what one flower shop owner said when asked how much sales had recovered during the recent graduation season compared to pre-pandemic levels. Graduation season in Korea during December through February is usually when the flower industry sales blossom. But lately, it's been wilting.
Because people haven't been buying flowers that often, even after COVID-19, the need for flowers has disappeared. If people had been continuously buying flowers, they would be interested in buying them and sometimes even making a habit out of buying flowers.
One expert offered other reasons.
There's the perception that flowers are too expensive. And along with the decrease of the school-age population, shrinking overall consumption are other reasons as well.
According to the auction price data from Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation earlier this month, the prices of many flowers used in graduation bouquets saw on-year increases. In particular, hydrangea was up by around 150%, gypsophila rose by 30%, and freesia around 10%. Experts say factors include bad weather and increased imports of low-cost flowers. So, due to higher prices, people are looking at ways to buy flowers more cheaply.
I usually go to flower markets and buy them in bulk to get them at a more reasonable price.
Some are even trading flowers through used goods smartphone apps. A graduation bouquet like this can cost as much as between $20 and $50, but they are also being traded at lower prices, sometimes reduced by more than 50% on used goods apps. Bouquets that are said to have been used only for a short time to take pictures with at graduation ceremonies are being traded using these platforms. With this having a knock-on effect on the flower industry, one expert says there are ways to see it bloom again.
The distribution stage should be reduced, prices should be lowered for consumers, and appropriate compensation should be given to farmers and for labor costs due to the change in the labor environment.
And the expert concluded the government should come up with actual measures to revive the industry, along with its 5-year promotional plan announced in 2022 to increase flower production volume by over $520 million by the year 2026. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
It's no exaggeration to say that the biggest news on the entertainment front this week was actors Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Austin Butler, and Stellan Skarsgård visiting Korea to promote their new film, Dune Part 2, ahead of its premiere next week. With this, Timothée Chalamet will have 2 movies on the big screen. So what's in store for moviegoers this time around in Korean theaters? Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
My name is Timothée Chalamet. I play Paul Atreides in Dune Part 2.
This 28-year-old American actor is currently making waves at the Korean box office.
The musical fantasy film Wonka, featuring Chalamet as young Willy Wonka, topped the box office for 22 consecutive days following its release, becoming the first film of the year to surpass 2 million ticket sales. While February is considered a low season for the big screen, Wonka is about to face competition from another Chalamet film, the sci-fi Dune Part 2. This sets the stage for a two-way showdown between the chocolate man Chalamet and the space army commanding Chalamet.
And I feel that my films, whether it's The King or Dune or Wonka right now, have been as warmly received in Korea as they have been anywhere in the world.
It's a blockbuster sequel following Part 1's triumph during the pandemic. Despite COVID's grip, the Frank Herbert novel-based sensation raked in $400 million at the global box office and sold over 1.6 million tickets in Korea alone. This sensation even brought up the term dun친자, meaning Duniac in Korean.
Dune's success comes from the star power of Timothée Chalamet, director Denis Villeneuve's visual effects, and his skillful handling of suspense. Although the genre of space opera wasn't particularly popular in Korea, the movie succeeded because it simplified the original novel's universe into this tight, gripping storyline, making it enjoyable for all.
Part 2 will focus on the main character, Paul Atreides, seeking revenge against the people who killed his family. Oppenheimer director Christopher Nolan likened the movie to Empire Strikes Back, often regarded as the best in the Star Wars film franchise.
I will say that Dune Part 2 is a much more muscular movie, meaning about action. There's more.
However, the two Chalamet movies are facing another strong competitor. The Korean occult thriller Exuma, starring veteran actor Choi Min-sik, ended Wonka's 3-week box office dominance on the day of its premiere. For the movies themselves, it's a competition, but a treat for film enthusiasts. 송유진, Arirang News.
As South Korea looks to welcome the first full moon of the Lunar New Year, eyes are on whether the skies will be clear enough for people to see it. 정월 대보름 is the name given to the first full moon of the Lunar New Year, and in South Korea, it's due to be at its fullest at 9:30 p.m. on Saturday. Traditionally, people wish on this particular moon for good fortune for the year ahead. This year's 정월 대보름 will also be the smallest full moon seen this year, with the supermoon to come in October.
The sky has cleared up, but the chilly weather continued throughout the day. With chilly conditions, there are many places with snow or ice piled up on the roads. Please pay special attention to icy roads. Light rain and snow have continued only in the inland areas of the Jeollado provinces and on Jeju Island. In the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, where a heavy snow advisory is in effect, up to 10 centimeters of snow will fall until the day after tomorrow. In Jeollanam-do province, sporadic rain of around 5 millimeters is expected tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning, freezing cold temperatures will be felt throughout the central parts of the country. Seoul will start off at -2 degrees Celsius, Daegu and Gyeongju 1 degree. Daily highs will move up to 6 in Seoul, Chuncheon, and Gyeongju. You may be wondering whether the full moon will be visible tomorrow with it being 정월 대보름. Rain clouds will stay in the southern parts of the country. Therefore, the full moon is expected to be seen through the clouds only in some central regions. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a great weekend and a good night.